I don't want this conversation to turn to a partisan thing. I just try to give everything a fair hearing. And many times I think the establishment and our media try to stifle and discourage people from having an open mind about things and just making their minds up for themselves and looking into things for themselves. That's all I'm saying. And I remember, see, I'm no spring chicken, folks, and I remember the year 2000 pretty well, and the contestant election that unfolded there between Al Gore and George Bush, which became his first term. And there were a lot of questions and shenanigans going down there in Florida at that time. And it seemed between that and the WEBULL voting machines that were going around at that time, it seemed pretty clear to me that there was a lot of election manipulation going on there. And then we even had a lot of investigations, a lot of really good investigations and hearings around these voting machines back then. And what they concluded was that the voting machines were made so they could be tipped and manipulated in terms of anyone with the right passwords could override the results of any election. Now let me ask you folks, why on earth would you make voting machines where that is a potential feature? I'm just asking. This is a really common sense question. And if people want to call this conspiratorial, that's their prerogative. But why on earth would you build voting machines where that is an option? And then it makes you wonder, who WEBULL was doing business with, the manufacturer of these voting machines back then. And perhaps who was getting extra kickback for buying voting machines with those features, right? So I think a combination of everything went down then. It seemed pretty obvious to me that a lot was going on back in 2000. And back then, just out of default of my perspective on things, I was called, a loony lefty or loony liberal or whatever. Now, if you question the integrity of any elections, the mainstream media, the establishment, everybody brandishes you as an election denier. This is the dehumanizing terminology we are using to automatically label and marginalize anyone who has any questions or suspicions about election integrity in 2022. And I think that's by design. And I think it's conveniently hypocritical. And I'm just as skeptical about elections as I was then and as I am now. But now people have different political labels for me because of that, which is ironic, isn't it? Let's just keep it to paper ballots, fill them out, hand them in, game over. Once in a while, technology just isn't the answer. And I think with voting, technology just isn't the answer. Except for perhaps blockchain. Blockchain possibly could be a very viable answer for upholding election and voter integrity. And sometimes I think people are very flexible. Certain people, anyway, can be very flexible on their interest in election and vote integrity according to the outcome of that said election. And I think that's very unfortunate. The GOP has been continually ineffective, and they had so many concerns over the last general election, but virtually did nothing between 2020 and now to increase voter security. To me, this should be a bipartisan issue and at the top of the list for everyone, regardless of political persuasion. It's not hard. If we all demanded paper ballots, this should have been a foregone common sense conclusion as a country that we have decided on this years ago. This should have been decided over 20 years ago. Now, folks, if you look up, of course, do this after I'm done. Your man Real Deal is done streaming. But if you look up WEBULL investigations, that's DIEBOLD, on YouTube or Odyssey or whatever, you will see multiple videos of some of the very same politicians right now that are persecuting others for questioning integrity election right now. Some of those very same people were up in arms about election integrity 20 years ago. It's always been a concern for me. Always been a concern for me. It's just that the establishment has different labels for people like me, according to what's convenient for them at the time. And they'll have different labels for you too. Personally, I'm more of the persuasion that our current two-party system and platforms are rather antiquated. But why? Okay, so right when it became known and confirmed that the WEBULL voting machines way back in the 90s and early 2000s were riddled full of mistakes, illogical outcomes that can't be explained, right then and there, we should have collectively decided a country like, you know what, let's just scale this back. Let's just do pen and paper, pencil and paper. That way, it leaves nothing. Nothing that could be hacked. But no, that'd be too simple. That'd be too straightforward. Just like our tax code system. They could make it all in one sheet. You know that, right? You know that. You know they could make the process of filing taxes way simpler, way more comprehensive for us. You know that, right? You know most other countries don't have tax code systems and forms that are as complex and confusing as ours. You know that, right? Did they do that on purpose? To screw us. Just as like I think that we have the voting technologies in place for certain people to screw us. I said it. The fact that these are even seen as controversial statements to make in this day and age is astounding to me. Most third world countries don't need days and days to count votes like we do in certain particular swing states in this country. What's that about? What's that about? I live in a swing state. I remember they stopped the voting in the middle of the night in 2020, and they didn't restart the voting until the next day. Bizarre. Very strange. Never been done before. They've never just stopped in the middle of the night and then started again the next day until 2020. And folks, let me just be clear. I'm for election integrity across the board. I really don't think this should be a partisan issue. I was right out there calling election shenanigans when it benefited the Republicans in 2000. And I think there are reasonable questions to be had today. But they call you a denier, election denier. See the tactic? It's very dehumanizing. It's a lot easier to marginalize any questions over our elections if you can just label anyone who is skeptical of them as a crazy person. It's a dehumanizing tactic and not a new one. What's really interesting to me about all of this is the solution is very simple, but it seems our elected leaders either don't have the desire or testicular fortitude to make it happen. They're still counting the votes over there. Third world countries don't even need this much time. This isn't normal. They want you to think all this stuff is normal. They're trying to condition you guys to think all this is normal. It's not normal, folks. Don't be sedated by this stuff. It's not normal. It's okay to ask questions. It's okay to be skeptical of your government. It's okay to be skeptical. And this isn't a partisan thing, guys. I want to make that very clear. My political opinions are very nuanced, as you guys know, but I gotta call a spade a spade. And I gotta use my free speech in the capacity that I have it. Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Steele. Thank you for watching, listening to this video. I want to know what you think in the comments below, so let me know. I love reading your comments. Also, if you're not already subscribed, feel free to do so. We've got an awesome community here, and I want you to be a part of it. And if I could just ask you to smash that like button, it takes a split second of your time, it doesn't cost you a dime. Until next time, signing out.